Right. Hello and happy Thursday. I'm actually recording early because I'm heading out tomorrow. Friday, I'm heading up to Google to go to their Dev Fest, which should be really awesome. Todd McLeod's going to be speaking there, our own Todd McLeod. So excited for that. So, anyway, getting it done a little early. And next week is Thanksgiving. So, I want to talk about the schedule that we have in front of us. Kind of taking a little bit of a breather this week. You are going to continue to build on your Project Zero. I'm going to add one little thing that I want you to do, which shouldn't be a big deal, called a favicon, which is totally fun. And I also want you to watch a little bit of the Chrome Dev Summit. I spent some of my week this week watching the live stream, and I want you to pick out one of whether it's the beginning keynotes or any of the other sessions that you might want to watch, and watch a part of it and then summarize what you've learned, because there's some great information talking about the continuing importance of web apps and how we can really do so much more with web apps, which is really exciting for people and folks learning in the web development areas, all those folks that are looking to build native apps really have another option that I think more and more of them are considering as the maturity of web apps and web technology come online. So it's a pretty exciting time, honestly, to be here. So let's turn to the schedule and talk about what we have. So we're continuing the Bootstrap. This is our last Bootstrap week. Okay, so our last one. I did change, you can maybe not see it here, I did change the due date. So when you're looking at next week, when you're looking at Thanksgiving week, normally on Thursday night, right, we have a due date, so we won't have one this week. I'll put that off until, I wouldn't recommend you do, but I'm going to put that off until the 30th, right? So after Thanksgiving. So you have a little more time with that one, but use your time accordingly. So then for the current topics, as I told you, I want you to pick out something on the Chrome Development Summit, and the website is here. And I was looking at it today, and it looks like they have the keynote up. And then I went to YouTube and I just typed Chrome Developer Summit 2015. And they either have the full day, which you'd have to go through and you could look at the schedule, or they've already started to break down some of the talks. Okay. So you might start with the keynote if you want to just get an idea of, and make sure you don't watch the 2014 one, the 2015. By the time you look at this, I believe they will have broken down even more. But the keynotes are really great. But then if you want a little more technical, you can go into some of the web service worker, which was awesome. Anything that talks about Rail these days, which is really high performance websites, any of that you find would be helpful. And then summarize, right? Give us a summary. Spend, half hour, 20 minutes watching it. Summarize what you learned, and that's what you'll write about. Okay, so the current topics I think is actually in this case really current because this just happened, right? Okay, so now let's go back and talk about what you need to do for the hands-on. So I've talked to a couple of you this week. So let me say this. I've talked to a couple of you this week, and it seems the part that threw several people was the idea of when you place things up on the server is how you resolve the domain that I've given you, the space, the domain space, URL, and what is up on the server. And I believe last week's video should help clarify that even more. Okay, that's my hope anyway. So, but I'm going to go over it just briefly after I cover what you have to do this week. So this week, and let me show you what I did last week. Last weekend, I just went crazy. I just spent a lot of my weekend looking and building my own kind of version of Project Zero. And honestly, I did this because I'm going to use this probably layout somehow. So it was really fun actually to go through and do some of this. But notice that up in here is the fave icon. So when all you really have to do, okay, and I'll walk you through the process. You can add HTML code, but you don't have to. All you have to do is create this favicon and put it up on the server. When you're looking at it locally, it won't generate, okay? So I'll show you that in a minute, but I'm really excited to get a good start on this idea of Project Zero. And again, yours is going to be different because you're going to have organized this into the topics that you want to cover right? But it's the same idea of creating pages. So, but again, let me stick to where we're heading. But like I said, I'm pretty excited about this. I had a really fun time doing it. Was really remembering how much I love front end development and how fun it is. Okay, so it was great for me. And then I did take images from the web and I modified them using this awesome thing. I mean, this PicMonkey thing is awesome. So what I did is I created, this is the icon, this is the image that I just created, and all I did is I used text. I created a new custom image, and I'll show you that in a second. And then I just put text on it. You can do it however you want. You could just put your initials. It doesn't really matter, right? Do something though that would be fun for you, right? And then what I did is I resized it, and it needs to be square. And it started with the 2000 by 2000, but I went ahead and pared it down a little bit, okay? And then, right, I just saved it, right? So I just saved it, and then I saved it as, I can just save it as a PNG. I notice how much smaller they are, because you don't need these to be high quality, because what they're, now this is not the file itself, this is just the file, my source file, you might think of it in this way. So you can put it wherever. Let's see where it's defaulting for me. It looks like it is going into my images, into my 82. Probably not the best space, but at least it's in there. Okay, so let me go ahead and hit save. So once I get it locally, right? So once I get it locally, then you can go search for, and here's favicon.generator.org. So then what you can do is you can take, and I'm going to go to that location, right, that I just saved it to. See where that was at. I thought it was in that same directory. Should have been right. Oh, you know what? I've noticed my computer is doing this lately. For some reason, it's not looking at it or sorting it correctly. But anyway, I found it. That's the one I just did. Okay. So wherever I save that file, and I'm going to go ahead and hit open. And then when I do that, it'll generate, which is cool because I have it large enough, it'll generate all these different sizes. And I'm going to go ahead and say generate the favicon. And then it does all these different sizes. And it's weird because it gives you a little broken thing, but you just download it. And what it downloads is a zip file. Okay, so I'm just going to show you this, right? So in this file, and you can see I've done it a couple of times, I'm going to go ahead, that's the file. Mac automatically takes these zip files and unzips them into a directory. So if I double click into here, here are all the different sizes that it created for me. But for now, the only one you have to upload is this one. So you upload it into your server. Okay, so upload it into the root directory of your server. Okay, so let me just show you that. I'm going to go to cyber.care, right? So remember, when you're looking at this and you're getting onto the server space, when you go into the directory HTTPS, that's considered the root of your server space, your domain in this case, okay? And you can see I placed my favicon icon up in there, and that's what generated it. Okay, so hopefully that should be fun, not that hard, a couple steps to do. Let me do show you though, since I did in here. I'm going to do a new one. I'm going to go ahead and get X out of here just to show you how I got started. I went ahead and did custom. What did I do? I did edit. No, I didn't do edit. Edit would be if you uploaded one, right? So I'm going to do a design. And then under design, oh, let me go back there. That went by really quick. I'm going to do a design, and then when I hit design, I'm going to do a square. Now that's what I said. Then you can go in and do your text. You can apply text to that, right? You can just add text and it'll add that in there, right? And you can add something, but remember, you want to make that as large as you can so it shows up, right? So go through that process, and then like I said, that's when you want to go down and resize it to like something like 400. Right, now it will, when you go through the favicon generation, it will actually take it and make it all the different sizes, right? But again, you don't actually have to add any code, you just upload this icon for now. If you were doing higher end development, of course you would do a little code, but for the purposes of what we're doing, this works fine, okay? Okay, so now after having said that, I want to revisit just for a minute before I leave today. I'm going to leave this as well, this idea of the server space, right? So keeping in mind what you need to be doing now is working more. So I feel like this hands-on shouldn't take a huge amount of time, and it should continue to allow you to work on your server space, right? Or your project zero. So what I'm referring to here is when this URL that points to your server space resolves, okay, to the directory https docs. So, and I showed this last week when I had you put up the template, then you have to go to that subdirectory, right? And you can, if I open it, I don't have to point to the index file. It will automatically, as long as I just point to the folder itself, okay? So making sure you got that connection between, right? So I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually just hit the home, which is in the index file, right? So when you're talking about resolving pages that you've uploaded into your domain space, you just have to know how to reference them. And what I did starting last week was I modified my template, and then I started uploading into the root, so that root part of the server, or in the root part of my web host, so that whenever I put up here, resolved to this location. Okay, so again, I think last week should have given you another experience of doing that, but I know from talking to a couple of people that was really a little bit confusing. So hopefully, again, just more of doing this, more of doing this. Okay, so the other thing I want to show you is that, here I have in Sublime, right? So as an example at the end, but I'm just going to show you this now. Let's say I was working on my index file and I wanted to, right, I was looking at this. This is looking at it from the server space, and then I could also look at it from the local, right? Right click, open in the browser, right? So this is looking, and you can see here the favicon doesn't show up. It's the server that handles that at this point for us. But let's say, and you can see this by looking through here, right? So I created a couple of pages here, right? And I put a couple of links to Fresno City, also links externally, right? And so these, though, is my navigation. So I want you to have hopefully built out at least enough pages to resolve your menu. And again, rethought your menu to see if that's where you want to head with this. So rethought those categories / menus, and then built in started. So my hope would be for you after, and I'm not making this part of the work for this week, but I'm giving you another opportunity to work on it, is that you build that out and continue building more pages, right? So really what I'd come in here to show you was just, again, that process of building a page in the way we're doing it. And again, this is a little dated, but it's still good experience, because part of this is just learning how to manage your files. Okay, so let's say I wanted to create another new page, right? So part of what I'd want to do, because for me, each of my menus, I'm going to use that same background to kind of help users know if I'm doing a subpage in lectures, right? And I've put so many here, it kind of made sense I could break these out into another page, right? So I could make it, lectures 1 through 3 or something like that. Or in the case of the hands-on, again, because I've put them all on here, I could break them into multiple pages. That's kind of the idea that I had here with my tag cloud. And tag cloud actually means how many words occur in this case, but so I could call this links, right? So I could call it subpages. I mean, I could call it anything here. But the idea is that if I'm going to create a subpage off of this menu item, right, I'd first go to that item. Right, so let's actually do this now. So let's say I was going to do it under lectures, right? So I'd bring up lectures. There's my page right here, right? And so I'm going to do in Sublime, File, Save As. And when I do this, I'm going to create a new page, right? Making sure I'm in that directory, my 82 directory. I'm going to call it maybe week, right? And again, this would be whatever topic you're covering there, right? Let me call it week 4 and 5. 4 through 5, something like that, whatever you name. But again, remember, it's best to keep these lowercase if you can. If you're going to use more than one word, you can use camel case. I did from 4 to 5, that should be okay. Don't use spaces, that will totally throw it off. So the file name, basically that's all you're doing, is you're taking this file, lecture.html, and you're taking that and creating a new file based on that file, or copying that file. So I'm going to hit save here, right? So now I have that new file, right? I have that week 4, a new file based on my lecture, right? Now, in this case, it's not linked anywhere. So the only way I could get to it on my local system, because I haven't uploaded it, is I do week 4 through 5.html. Now, oh yeah, it was a lecture file. Sorry, I was hands on. It threw me off for a minute, but no big deal. So that, understanding that right there. So now I have to link it somehow, right? So this is the idea of linking things lower, sublinking, linking, creating HTML hrefs from my main pages into subpages. So I'd have to figure out a way in my content to reference it, right? So let me go back to my Sublime, right, in here. And first thing I'd probably want to do here is change some of the content, so first I could see that it was different, right? So instead of lectures here, where it is here, well, sorry, that's the title, and by the way, that you do need to customize as well, but let me scroll down and find what I was talking about here. Okay, so here it is. So this might be called week 4 through 5, right? Something like more content. Right, so cool, that looks good, that looks good, right? So then I'd want to go back to my lecture. Let me go ahead and save that. Again, Sublime is really great at making me more efficient. Okay, go back to my lectures, right? And then I would have to figure out, based on my content, right, how I would link that then into there. So I might come down in here, Fresno County Library, and then maybe before this I would say see week 4 and 5, right? And then I make this an aref. So I would do a ref equals. Now here's what I'm going to do week 4 and week 4 through 5. And by the way, if I didn't have the text right up against it, it actually would, Sublime would actually help me write that content. And then I would go here and I would go in my A, cool. Okay, so then I would save it, right? So this, I'm adding a link. Okay, so let me go back. So now in my lectures, let's go back to lectures, right? So now I'm going to refresh this, and then I'm going to go down and I'm going to see, right? And I can tell I also need to do a little styling, I remember, on my CSS here, because it's hard to know. You can't know until you roll over it, but easily fixed. So if I click on that, then that gives me, let me make sure I did this right. Save 4 through 5. Just making sure everything's right here, making sure 4 through 5 is there. Okay, let me reload this, make sure I got the right one. Okay, hold on, let me just check it. I think there's just something minor I forgot. And of course there was. But how many of you saw it as I was doing it? I forgot the equals right there, right? So aref equals, right? So this is most of the code, and the rest of it you can copy and paste from your stuff that you've already written about for these topics. So let me refresh that again, come back down here, and now when I click, it goes to that page, right? So that's the process. That is the process. And again, this is a review of what you need to do to build out first your menu, right? So building out your menu, and then building your subpages. So I'm not going to do it, but the last step I would need to do now is actually place that content that I generated up on the server, right? So that's where I would have open my folder, and I would look at, because I would know, let me just go to my desktop, right? And I'm going to go to my 82 directory, right? And in this case, I could look at it to figure out. It'd be pretty easy because I know what content I was creating. Then I would be dragging these two updates, right? So these two I could just drag over. Now I'm not going to because that's not a page I'm actually going to use right now, but that's the idea, right? And I know that was a little bit, you can also, it was a little bit confusing for folks. You can also just drag them in, making sure you place them in the HTTP docs, okay? All right, so hopefully that gives you a little more information. Come see me. I've seen a couple of you and it's been great. Now is the time you really want to reach out for help. So I've been reading I've been reading the post as I'm grading, and so keep that in mind. Is that I hear that some of you got frustrated, so I tried to reply in there, but really it is your job to reach out, right? Let me know if you need something. Many of you on chat have been great. Nina's been awesome, very helpful. So, reach out, get what you need. So anyway, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to a little bit of time off. I suspect we all are. So plan accordingly, enjoy your time, and happy Thanksgiving.